Hey everyone, welcome to a little bit of woo. I'm super excited because I got this celebrity guest, you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Because you guys have been watching my channel, I've got higher views, so I'm not getting ghosted by as many people when I invite them to be on my show. And Kim said yes. So anyway, I met Kim as a result of being on the NDE. We were both on the same show, and she was on a few days before me, and I'm like, she's so neat. I want to get her on mine. Maybe she'll say yes. And she did. And I was on her show and she's on mine now. It's amazing. So, I'm telling you how great she is. Let me tell you what she is so that you guys can know. So Kim is the host and creator of the YouTube channel Intuitiview, which gives political predictions. Love that. And also offers channeled spiritual messages to give guidance and direction for her viewers. Kim is a natural intuitive empath with developed skills in clairvoyance, clairaudience, mediumship. My God, you did everything. Kim is also an orb whisperer. We are totally going to talk about that. And has developed a method of mediumship, which includes orb communication. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for saying yes.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to do this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
We're going to have fun. Okay. So, since nothing has happened in the last week that anybody is interested in hearing about.
No, nothing at all.
Right?
Nothing to see here.
Also, guys, sometimes I'm in an area where if everybody in the neighborhood turns on YouTube at the same time, as occasionally it'll flicker a little bit on the TV. Just ignore it. Just consider it part of the fun, guys. Okay. Okay. So, speaking of what's going on in the news, do you want to talk about that? Because I want to talk about the orbs for sure, but the question everybody is asking me in their readings is, are we about to hit World War III? Do you want to answer that, or do you want a softer one first?
Yeah, no, I've never seen like a World War III kind of thing. I think it's going to be a lot of, what we have is a lot of, it's sad to say, but kind of men trying to be macho and out macho each other and show how tough they are in their, what are they, in their 80s now or 70s and 80s? You'd think they would have outgrown this, but apparently not. And we're the instead of them getting like, oh, I don't know, therapy or something like that, we're kind of the recipients of their mental, whatever problems. I don't feel like it's a World War III. I don't feel that way. I do feel like there'll be some uncomfortable moments, and I think there'll be some tit for tat and that kind of thing, and go back and forth. But I actually feel like I've always felt like there was going to be a lot of, in the next couple of years, upheaval in Iran. And so this may be the start of that, or adding to it, or something like that. So, but that's what I'm getting. What about you?
Yeah, I was never seeing, World War III. I was seeing a lot of conflict in the Middle East, and people predicted like, oh, we're going to have peace in the Middle. I'm not seeing that anytime soon. But I wasn't necessarily seeing American boots necessarily going on the ground, which I think is what most people watching are probably the most concerned about. But it's just a sad, sad situation. And God, it's just sad. I can't describe it any other way, but I do see a lot of conflict, almost like harmony through conflict with, like you said, a lot of stuff going on in Iran, certainly the way they've been treating the women over the, decades, centuries, right, has not been good. But nothing like that's ever happened here in the United States, of course. Right? But yeah, I'm glad that we're both like not seeing Armageddon. Definitely not seeing that there.
No, not really. I think it's going to be might be uncomfortable. There might be some scary moments, walking up to the edge and tiptoeing back. But I really think at the beginning of the year, I did my 2025 predictions, and the things that my guides said was the most important things. They said two things were most important. If we're going to do anything, these are the two things. One is to protect your energy, and the other is to find a couple of minutes a day to check in, just to get quiet, to get still, open that door, and to keep your gift of discernment clear. so that because we're going to hear a lot of misinformation, disinformation, things that, is that true? Is that what's happening? Is it? And it will keep that, it will help you to be able to discern what resonates and what doesn't. And so, but those are the two most important things. And I feel like if we do that, as individuals, we'll make it through, we'll be okay. And your guides are going to keep you safe, and they're going to tell you, if it's time to leave the area, or if it's not. I mean, we all have things in our area probably that we have to keep an eye on. I'm in California, so it's fires and earthquakes for us, and now ice is here. So, it depends on, where you are, but, your guides are going to keep you safe. But opening that door every day is, I think it's key right now, just because there's a lot of noise and a lot of chaotic energy and a lot of noise right now. So I think that's important. But,
I love what you just said about your guides will keep you safe, because I've seen cases, and you I both have in our lives, where your guides will hide your keys if you should, to avoid keep you from running into some situation in life that you're not supposed to. They have a lot of fun playing around keeping you safe, and I love that you pointed that out. And our job is to listen to them. And I love the guarding energy. Oh my God, that's so smart. We all need to be doing that. We all need to be doing that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. You asked me a question that I thought was great, so I'm gonna hit it right back at you. What do you think about Stephen Miller?
Oh gosh,
where's the holy water? I should have started with the ones. Let's talk about something else. We can talk about.
What do I think about him? When you were on my channel, I talked about when I looked at him the first time, his energy felt to me so much like Roger Stone. It also was like a younger Roger Stone, and by that, I just mean actually, extremely insecure, extremely manipulative, extremely, and having this kind of this sort of kind of like I'm the smartest guy in the room, that kind of air about them, to cover for the fact they're extremely insecure about a lot of the things that they grew up not having. And that would have been really nice to have, they kind of realized early on, both of them, that they had the brains and not the bronze. And so they kind of focused in on, how to kind of cultivate those gifts, rather than, focusing on their looks. They knew early on they did not, they weren't great looking. They weren't gonna, but I think that that was a starting place of a lot of damage. These are damaged people. I mean, that's really what they are. But I think a lot of that early damage started then, because they really wanted to be the good looking, popular, person with a lot of friends and a lot. They really did want to be that, and became angrier and angrier that they could not be that. But then they kind of focused in on things they could be, which was, kind of mean, manipulative, and were smart, had brains, could figure things out. But the other thing that is they have in common is that it's almost like they're negative charisma. Like they just they're not very likable. So that's always going to be their Achilles heel. I think it's always will prevent them from getting just so far. I think that Stephen Miller and Roger Stone, I think they both went as far as they could. I don't think Stephen Miller is going to go further than this. And I think he's going to have a really hard time post-Trump, which there will be a post-Trump.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, I
talk
think
about that.
I think we'll have a hard time.
Talk about that. When do if you're okay talking about this sort of divisive political, yes, there is going to be a time post-Trump. We all know that 4 years is going to end. Do you see that happening sooner, or do you see it? How do you see that playing out, or do you have any sense on that?
I think there's a few scenarios, and he's interesting because I feel like he has I think we talked about this a little bit, that he has a a job to fulfill. He has a purpose to fulfill that I feel like we're in the midst of, we're in the middle of. and it's kind of why he's back in our face and will remain in our face apparently until he's fulfilled this purpose. And I've never really felt like he would get through the term. I always felt like something would pause that. However, I also think this purpose is number one. But I feel like once he's fulfilled that, whatever that is, and maybe we'll get a sense of it as it's upon us, we'll be like, oh, this is what it is. That it'll be a fast exit. So either he will leave the country overnight or he will pass overnight, or something will happen where it just, because it does feel like something is going to shift very quickly at some point. It will almost feel, and I don't know if it will be overnight, but you can appreciate this. My guides have always sort of given the comparison, because I use a lot of movie, TV, music, and stuff like that to get things across to me. And what they said it would be like is, I don't know if you remember this, but in the late 80s, that the hair bands like Bon Jovi and like, you know, whatever, all the different hair bands that we had, that it was like, by the end of the 80s, it was like out of control. Like their hair was the hugest, their clothes were the tightest. It was just over the top. And I remember very clearly watching a video one time and I think, how much further can they go with this? This is kind of ridiculous. And then in the early 90s, 91 or something, Nirvana came on the scene. And it was like overnight, the whole culture, the whole music scene, it just seemed like it just switched. And all of a sudden it was grunge and everything was out of Seattle and everything was downplayed. I mean, you didn't wear any makeup and you went to thrift stores to get your clothes. I mean, it was overnight that this giant 80s overdone everything was just flattened just by kind of one band and one culture movement. And they've compared it to that it would seem like how far this is just getting out of control, how much further can it go? And then it will just be like, boom, overnight, it's done. So that's what they've compared it to. And so it could be something like a death overnight, or something happens where it's just, it really is kind of turned on its head very quickly. But it always has felt like that. And that's what I've gotten from my guides as well.
I love that. When I asked my guides about something, like I kept getting that, you know, we think the hero in the story is this character when actually it's not. Like that some of the people we think are the good guys aren't necessarily the good guys, and some of the ones we think are the bad guys aren't really as bad as we think, and that there was just more that we were gonna know. I love that, and I love what you're saying about. I love the idea, the analogy with the hair bands, because I was, you know, of course that was way before my time. My nose is growing anyway.
Yeah.
But I love Nirvana. I love Nirvana. Let's talk about that bigger picture. Do you get any sense of what that bigger picture is? What the bigger mission is? Because you're right. I have always kind of seen it as like, if we went with Kamala, it would have been one way. If we went with him, it was going to be a different way, but the end was going to be the same. Can you talk a bit about that bigger mission, or you get any sense of that?
I think what a lot of it has to do with, and I think there are different ways it can play out. I mean, clearly, if we could go with one person over another person, but we're going to get there, it's, you know, what I felt was that with this guy, that it was going to be a shorter, bumpier road. It was going to be very difficult and very, challenging, but it would be fast. With her, I felt like it could go on for another 10 or 15 years because of that clash, that pushback, like we had during Biden. You know, oh, you're lying, and we're like, totally, you didn't win, and it would have gone on and on and on.
Yep.
What I think some of this is about, and I think there's probably layers, you know, to all of this, but I do think one thing this is about it's the kind of the empath and the narcissist. And it's so clear that one group is caring about other people, wanting to help other people, wanting to wanting to kind of give people a hand and help them out, and they want to fix stuff and make people, help people to be happy and help people to be better. And then there's this other faction that seems to be, if it's not happening to me, I don't care. And I think that there's this thing happening where during this period, empaths are learning to be more self-centered, more selfish in a way, taking care of themselves. I mean, how often over the last few years have you heard the word self-care, right? It's like be more self-focused. And like we talked about, protecting our energy and things like that. And the narcissists, or the people that are more self-centered, are learning to be more compassionate. And for that to happen, for a certain segment of the population, it has to happen to them. Otherwise, they don't get it. They don't understand why this is wrong or why it feels bad. If you're an empath, empathy comes so naturally to you, but it doesn't for everybody. Some people were never taught it. Some people had maybe through childhood trauma or something that happened to them, they had to bury it, or maybe they are, have alcohol and drug problems that have made them less empathetic, or, it's like I said, it's a myriad, it's kind of all over the place. But one of the things that's happening, I think, is that, because I'm kind of seeing it in my own life, and I'm seeing it around, and I'm just, seeing it. And the other thing is this confrontation of ego. So, and if there's ever been a character in our, that's been like kind of in front of us and in our face for this long, that's embodied all the things of ego. I mean, even down to the reality television. I mean, everything, the greed, the cruelty, the meanness, the complaining, the never happy, the grudges. I mean, it really, he embodies all of it. Being dishonest, all of these things. It's sort of this confrontation of ego versus consciousness, and kind of moving beyond the ego finally. And the ego takes, it's being identified with the identity that we've created, right? It's being identified with, this is all I am. I'm just Kim. I'm just a woman. I'm just, these are the things I am, and that's it. And it's bringing in that spirit part of us, that being part of us, or that higher consciousness that's coming in. It's you can see it in just the way that spirituality has grown over the last several years. Just on YouTube. I mean, how many spiritual channels are there? There's so many. All the NDE stories. It's clear that there is a movement happening, and something is pushing us forward in that way, and letting go of some of more traditional religion, and so often you hear that, I left my religion and now I'm just more spiritual. I'm just more spiritually based, or I'm more, I subscribe to some things in Buddhism and some things, and it, people are finding their way. And I don't ever remember it being like this, where things like NDEs and, talking about frequency and, vibration and things as being just like part of the zeitgeist. It's just like in our atmosphere everywhere you look now. It just has never been like that. So I think that's also happening, where we're moving into a new consciousness. People call it the shift, moving into the 5D, whatever that is, but we're kind of rising above ego and these kind of small identities that have kept us afraid, kept us separate. So we're moving into more of a cooperative, more caring about each other, realizing that we're one. You know, if this person is hungry, it actually affects me too. We're all, you know, in this together in a big way. I think we saw that during COVID. It couldn't be more obvious. I mean, the way that you know, that virus spread, and as quickly as it spread, it was clear we are all connected in a way that that maybe we didn't realize how very, very closely we are connected, even as a world.
I love what you just said, especially about these egos, because it's so clearly playing out that way, right? Trump versus Powell, Trump versus Elon, Bannon versus what's he going after? Tucker Carlson right now. Like, this is playing out on our TVs every day, and the smart ones of you guys aren't even watching it. You're so wise. The rest of us are like, what? When did politics become reality TV or WWF wrestling?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I love what you're saying, because I do see that it is like an exaggerated version of it. And now everybody's kind of like, oh yeah, that really can see it now.
Yeah, exactly.
I love what you're saying too about the spirituality, but that's, you know, your observation is really, really aligned, is that you're right. We hadn't been talking about portals and vibrational frequencies and even the Schumann resonance until like now. Like, you're right. Yeah, that is definitely happening. Maybe that is what people are talking about when they're talking about the up leveling. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, and we can, you know, jump in and with anything you want to say that I haven't thought to ask you. But I love what you said in your bio. You talked about orbs, and I would love for you to explain what those are. People ask me about these. They see them in the corner of their eye. They see them in their house. What are they?
Right. So orbs, well, and this has changed for me.
Okay.
So first, let me tell you that the reason that I got interested in orbs was I saw footage of a woman who had lost her son. She, and I think he was like a you know, early 20s, lost her son through a suicide. And she was in her house, and people were filming. They all had their phones, and she said his name. I can't remember his name. Can you come in? And can you come in? You know, basically. And this little orb comes in and comes straight to her, and then she says, "Can you come in as a pink orb?" And this little pink orb comes in and comes right to her. Wow. And then she says, "Can you go in and go to your guitar?" And here it comes, this little pink orb back in and goes straight to his guitar. And I was just mesmerized. And I thought, if this is real, because you always have to go there, because you always have to wonder if this is real. If this is real, this would be groundbreaking to help with people's grief, because it was so obvious that was him, that he was there. So that's what got me interested. And then I got in touch with a woman. Her name is Terry Chapman. If you haven't seen her channel, it is astounding. You can't believe what you're seeing. But she works with orbs. And that was the first time I ever heard kind of an orb whisperer or orb communicator. And she kind of taught me some basics that I could work with to start doing this. And I'd had a few experiences of seeing them, and that you just use your iPhone. And she told me like how she films and what she does. She's a photographer, and that's why she does it. But for me, it was all spiritual, and it was all it got to be a little scientific for me, because I would sort of repeat things, and I was trying to figure out, just like you're asking, what is this? What is going on here? So I got a Ring camera, and that would film in black and white. And then I got and it just films all the time. And at night, when it has the night vision, you can see orbs. You can see orbs in your house and all around you and in your bedroom. And then I also used my iPhone. And with that, you can film in color, which is good because orbs do communicate in color. What an orb is it is basically energy. It's spirit energy. And when it comes to pets, when it comes to guides, angels, they will travel in that form. And it's just a form that they travel in, and they're super tiny. They're just little, and it's just pieces of their energy that they're sending in. When it comes to loved ones, so this is where it gets really interesting, or I think it gets interesting. So my dad is on the other side, and he helps me with a lot of my spiritual work. And so I asked him to help me with orbs and to understand orbs. So one night I was standing in our living room, and from our living room, you can see into it. We have a bar, and you can see into the kitchen. And the orbs, I was asking him, Dad, can you send me some orbs? And I was filming, and he started sending them in. And all of a sudden, and it was just my focus, because seeing spirits is a focus if you're going to see them with your eyes. The way I was focused, and I think it was the way I was focusing in on the orb, so my gaze was very light, and I was focusing in on little things. I could all of a sudden see his silhouette standing in the kitchen. So he was standing there, and I all of a sudden said, Dad, I can see you. And I just I like froze so I could not lose my focus of where he was standing. And I said, Dad, send me an orb. And he put his hands in front of him like this and moved them together really fast, and an orb shot out. And that's when I realized that when it comes to people, like our, family members that or friends, they're actually standing there, sending in the orb, almost like blowing a kiss. It's just a piece of their energy, and they're throwing it. And from that time, as I started to do, because for a while I was doing orb mediumship, where people would give me questions to ask their family, and I would call them in as, ask them to come in. They would send in orbs to answer the questions. It was really fun. But when I was doing one of those, in one of the videos that I did, I could actually see this young man. It was a young man who had passed away, and he was sending in orbs, and I actually saw him take his hands up like he was throwing a pitch, like a baseball player, and throw the orb at me. And when I told his mom that, she's like, he played baseball. So
I love that. Oh, Kim, that's a great story.
The craziest thing. So that's what it is. And like I said, it's changed over time. Because at first I thought everybody was the orb. That's what they were, but it's not that. They're sending in energy. And as far as I know, and maybe our angels and guides and things are doing the same thing, but to me it seems more like it's more concentrated with them. And a lot of times they'll come in as different colors. They'll come in as different shapes. And a lot of times if you're using if you decide to use a Ring camera, they'll use different shapes. They'll come in as different shapes to communicate more. A lot of times with mothers, when I'm talking to mothers, they send in pink orbs. Pink orbs, I've come to know, is unconditional love and compassion. So a lot of times with moms, I'll get pink. My dad always sends in blue. That was his favorite color, so it can be more personal. It can be, so I always tell people if they're doing orbs, to use your intuition and ask yourself, why would they be sending in this color? Is there something personal? And if there's not, then go to the more overall. There's lists online where you can find, or blue means this and yellow, and sometimes they line up perfectly with that, and other times it's more personal. They're sending in pink because that's your favorite color, or so yeah.
I love that, because you just you're filling in a gap in my understanding with that, because I'm not the world's best medium. I said out on your show that, some gifts came naturally, but that one I had to learn by taking classes, and I took a lot of them. But I remember I've talked to a number of people without bodies, and they always told me that there was some training that they got on the other side, and they learned how to do things like brush your shoulder, or like that sometimes when people will feel like almost like a hand on their shoulder and it feels like electricity. And it's like, yeah, we learned how to do that. Some other person showed me. And you're making me think that maybe they show each other, like somebody figured out how to do this orb thing. Hey, Bob, come over here. Let me show you how to do orbs so you can spook your daughter,
That's
Kim.
right.
I know that's not your dad's name, but whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like, I now I'm like, oh, I bet that's how that came from. So thank you for that.
It's funny. Yeah, because it's funny you say that, because when I was doing the orb mediumship, they would show up with other family members. And a lot of times I could see the silhouette of like a guide or a family member standing next to them. And they would kind of hold the energy, because there has to be a type of a buildup of energy. I guess it's kinetic energy or something that is allowing this to happen and make it easier. And they actually do. You're right. They have to learn how to do this, because sometimes, and they've told me repeatedly that the hardest thing to do, because I always have them, when I was doing the orb mediumship, I would say, send an orb straight to the camera for a yes. That was always a yes, because they don't tend to flow that way. They usually are flowing up. They usually if you just see them kind of flowing around the room, they're kind of either up or they go past, like side to side. To have it controlled and coming straight towards you like this and just come right to the camera, it's very hard to do. And they've told me this repeatedly, like that's difficult. And so a lot of times they'll have fails, like they'll kind of throw it out and they'll kind of go down, or they'll kind of throw it out and they'll kind of go that way. But you can see them trying. And it's fascinating to watch as they get better and better and better at it. And then finally they've got it. It's almost like, yes, and you can almost like hear them like, yeah, I did it, And so a session, and that's one reason that I've taken a break from doing it, is because the sessions would take me about a week, because I would have to get in contact. I would have to make sure they would want to do it, that they could do it. They would start communicating with me. And then I would start asking the questions, because they got warmed up, they got good at it. And yeah, it was so interesting. And a lot of times the orbs they would send, or how they would send them, was like it was like their personality. Some of them were kind of crazy and they come in and kind of bounce in and that kind of thing. And so you see that with pets too. A lot of times they come in, and the cats seem to kind of come in kind of slowly and kind of like sneakily like in, and the bigger dogs tend to bound in with their with their orbs and stuff. It's really quite fascinating and fun and so validating. It erases any doubt in your mind that there is an afterlife, that your loved ones are okay. It completely erases that. And I love it because, and that's why I thought it'd be great for grief, because there are people that they want to believe it, or they're pretty sure, but when they lose someone, it's kind of like all that goes out the window, and they just don't know, because they're not here and they can't hear them and they can't communicate. Where did they go? And you don't have to have abilities to see what's happening. I have to have the communication so I can film it. But when they watch it, they don't have to have any abilities, and they can see my loved one's okay. And sometimes it can help them get over a hurdle of grief if they're stuck. I've gotten the most amazing, emails, and after email, people saying, I did not know how I was going to climb out of this hole of grief, and this, I know they're okay, and I can start somewhere now. I can start moving again. It's really a gift. I mean, it really, really is. And if and anybody can do it. Anybody, if you have a camera, you can do it.
Let's talk about that, because as I was nosing around your website, the little stalker that I am, I see that you teach classes in this. Tell us about that.
There's a recorded class that you can just get and just do. It's self-guided, and there's a bunch of techniques. It explains everything. It shows you how to do your camera. It shows you everything. So you can do and it's cheap. I always keep my classes.
I saw that. Yeah, I was like,
this is cheap.
Anybody can afford this.
I just wanted to, I want anybody to be able to do this. But so you could do that. It's like a self-guided thing, and you can just start. Now August and September, I'm going to have what I'm going to call Orb Labs, because we're going to have a kind of these classes, and it's going to be, I think, three, maybe 4 classes. Haven't quite figured it out. I'm in the middle of other classes right now, so I haven't put it fully together, but it's going to be in August and September. And there's going to be more than one session because I want to keep the classes kind of small. And what we're going to do is have lessons in orbs, and then we're going to share the footage that we get and talk about it. And I'll kind of go through it and help people understand like what they captured or what they got or what, and to how to start making the most of the footage that you get. So because they don't just come in and that's it. They always want to give you something else. And I'll tell you this too, that first it was just kind of coming in and moving in different ways to get across different moods or different things. Then it was color. Then they started giving me colors. And then by the end of the time I was doing the orb mediumship, they were using sacred geometry.
Ooh, how cool is that?
They would start clumping together 2 and 3 and 4 orbs together as a clump to get across more messages. So it's clear that they're wanting to expand this way of communicating now that it's here. And it's here because of technology. It's here because of iPhones. It's here because of, and I think this is one of the ways that science and spirituality is going to connect. And who knows, there may be at some point a phone where it's like, hey, Grandma, how you doing? How's it over there the first few days? How are you doing? I feel like that's where we're going. It just is. They're not hiding from us, right?
No, they're not
hiding from us. It's us. We're the limited ones, and so we need to work on ways to communicate. That's all, because we're in the physical body. And we're limited by that. We have 5 senses. And so we need to work on our sensitivity, our third eye, our empath skills, so that we can branch out of this and feel and know and hear and see where they are. They're not hiding from us at all.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Well, Kim, as we wind this down, I want to, see if there's any questions I forgot. I didn't think to ask you that you really want out there. Anything that you want to say that's important, that you feel is important, people should know?
I think right now the most important thing is for people not to be afraid. I think there's so much fear, and I feel like, and I'm an empath, so I feel it every day.
I know.
It's like waves of fear and waves of anger. It's like it like switches over. So interesting. But I feel like the most important thing is to not be afraid, to understand that fear it's not your guides. It's mind made. It's ego. That's what keeps you in fear. Our egos want to keep us separate, afraid, alone, and dependent on that brain and that mind made stuff, the story we tell ourselves. Going back to the past, going into the future. And if you can find a way to, first of all, protecting your energy. We talked about that, protecting your energy, which really is talking about vibration, right? And I think the easiest way, and by the way, I was a preschool teacher for 15 years. So I love to teach, and I love to teach in like a simple way. I'm simple, so I like to teach in a very simple way people can understand, that I can understand. But vibration, I think the easiest way for people to understand it is that instead of saying lower and higher, I always say heavier and lighter, because I think that's a much more easier way to understand what things make our vibration low and what makes it high. And so think of things that make you feel heavy. After watching, the news, you feel burdened. You feel like everything's on top of you. You feel scared and worried and nervous. So starting to just notice what things make you feel heavier. And I always think of like like you have burden on you, you have, and you have fear and that the kind of heaviness. And then on the flip side of that, notice what things make you feel light. You know, maybe it's, you know, spending time in your garden or going outside or sitting with your pets. Or, you know, for me, it's a lot of it sadly is television based. I watch Bewitched, I watch The Brady Bunch, I watch Seven Mary Tyler
What
Moore.
about Sister Wives?
I go to sitcoms, you know, and things like that. But those things, they make me feel light. They make
I
me
love that.
have happy, you know, think of happy things and fun things. And isn't it, you know, so everybody's different. And so it's a matter of try it, you know, try it for a day. Try doing all the things that you think make you heavier. Try it for a day and see what you feel like at the end of the day. And then try a day in the opposite. And that way you kind of learn where your boundaries are and where your limits are. And maybe you watch a little bit of news, but not so much, right? So, or maybe you read the newspaper instead of watch, you know, so it really is a matter of practicing. And I think, you know, if you can take that fear out of it and just see it as like, it's almost like science projects, like figuring out where you are and what works for you and what doesn't work for you, because everybody's an individual. And energy is nothing to be afraid of. It really, really isn't. It's just energy. It's the mind-made stuff that makes us afraid. That movie I saw, remember that time when we played the Ouija board? Remember that? All of that stuff gets us in that, oh, is it an entity or is it this? No, it's just energy. And it's energy in different ways that energies can form. And so I always tell people, if they get scared or like they go into a room, it feels weird, get curious. Don't get scared. Do not move into fear. Get curious. What am I feeling? What am I really feeling? If I really, really feel this, how is it familiar? Where have I felt it before? Put language to it so it's not so scary. Oh, it feels kind of creepy, but it feels kind of fun too, kind of like a Halloween or something, right? So putting language to it can make it less intimidating. But I think there's so much fear right now, and really, we don't need to be fearful. We are eternal, very, very powerful beings. And we've forgotten that because we're in this separate form with a brain that confuses us and keeps us afraid and stuff. So if you can be in presence, try to stop thinking, try to stop that thinking by taking a few deep breaths and really just listening and feeling your breath, get present, and then go from there. Because I think, you know, sometimes you just have to pull yourself out of that mind and get present, and then do like we were talking about earlier, just kind of opening that door to your guides and saying, you know, just feeling them, inviting them in, not to get anything, right? Not because I think sometimes we get caught up on like, what's the message? What do I need to know? Just open the door and just feel that. And then what happens is that because you've been doing that, when it's important, they will get a message to you and you will feel it.
Absolutely.
Right.
I love it. Kim, that's great. Such great messages. I'm going to put all of your contact information in the description, but people like to hear it. How can they find you?
You can go to my website, which is intuitiview.com.
Right on the screen. Right next to your name.
And I have classes there. I have my club is there, which is through the YouTube channel. It's super easy to join. And I do mini readings for people every month there. I have my cards are there. My, all kinds of information. Psychic readings are there. If I don't have that many usually because I don't do that many, but there are some, I think right now, I think January or something, those are there. And just about me, you know, if you want to know like about what I do and who I am and stuff, that's there. And then the YouTube channel, Intuitiview.
She's got some amazing videos, you guys. I was nosing around on the YouTube channel. I wasn't just looking at my own.
There's a bunch of orb videos. If you want
a lot of stuff on there,
there's a bunch of stuff that's very interesting that I explain. And so if you want to see the orb stuff, you can go there and see it.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, Kim, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad to have you. You're amazing. And that was great advice. Um, and I love ending with this idea of just looking at what's life enhancing, what's heavy and what's light, and comparing the two and like, oh, I think I'll stick more with this stuff. And of course I loved Bewitched. It was a great show.
And keep it simple, right?
Keep it simple. That's so great.
We way overthink everything. It's like, no, we keep it simple. The stuff that feels good, it tells you something. And the stuff that doesn't feel good,
that tells you something too. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thanks so much, you guys. And thanks for joining. And thanks for sticking around to the end. Oh my God, did you just like it and subscribe? Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Well, thanks so much. And I will see you. I love you guys. And I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you.
So
Bye.
soon.